Wife kissed my twin at our party and I caught them having sex in his garage, and it turns out that she always wanted to sleep with both of us. Now we're divorced and I lost my best friend. My wife and I met in high school and we've been together ever since our junior year. We both met in art class and we fell in love over our shared interest in painting. It was both of our dreams to go to art school and eventually be able to sell our work for a living. After high school and college, we did our best to follow that dream. However, being a successful painter is a very competitive career, so we weren't able to succeed on that front. We both got other jobs, and we ended up finding happiness in different fields. One thing about me is that I am a twin. I have an identical twin brother and it's nearly impossible to tell us apart. It's been a funny joke our entire lives, and we have both gotten used to being mistaken by the people around us. There have even been points in our lives where our partners would come up to the wrong person to say something, then we would have to correct them. My wife would always joke about how she almost kissed my brother, or how she was worried she might climb into bed with the wrong twin. Everyone just laughed it off because it was an insane idea. My twin would never let that happen, at least that's what I thought. My brother was my best friend in the world. We were the exact stereotype of twins that you can imagine we were. I was the good twin and he was the evil twin. He was the one who was always getting into trouble while I was there to cover up for his mistakes. He got married about a year after I did. This is not something that I'm proud of by any means, but because he was my brother and I wanted the best for him, I ended up covering for him after he cheated on his fiancée. It was during his bachelor party. He was completely trashed and he ended up hooking up with some other random woman in the bathroom at a nightclub. He told me about it after like it was the funniest thing in the world. He didn't even remember it the next morning. I talked to him about it and he begged me not to tell anyone. I agreed to keep the secret, rationalizing it as just a drunken mistake that didn't need to potentially ruin his marriage. All these years later, I can't help but still think about it. It was very easy for him to slip up at the time, so I can't help but wonder if it was the only time. Ever since my brother and I moved away from each other, we've started a tradition of having a 4th of July celebration together. We would always alternate between whose house we would go to, and we would go all out for the holiday weekend. It was always nice for us just to be able to get together and catch up too. Everything seemed normal at the beginning of the weekend. We all caught up, cooked on the grill, and set off a bunch of fireworks. All of the adults had some drinks and it was a fun time. Toward the end of the night, I saw my wife walking up behind my brother to hug him and kiss him. When I saw them, she had just started kissing the back of his neck. Immediately, I yelled at her and said she had the wrong twin. They pulled away from each other quickly and laughed it off. My sister-in-law and I were also laughing. My wife and brother both said that they thought it was their partner. It was a little uncomfortable, but I believed her. Later that night, after we had all gone to bed, I heard my wife get up and walk out of the room. I assumed she was going to the bathroom or getting some water. It wasn't anything unusual, but she didn't come back for quite some time. After about 10 minutes, I was curious, so I got up to go look for her. I didn't see her anywhere in the house. I went back upstairs to call her, and that's when I noticed her phone was still on the nightstand. While the screen was lit up, I saw that there were a couple of unread messages from my brother. I picked up the phone and looked at them to realize they were sent just moments before she walked out of the room. I unlocked her phone to look through them and I saw a message that read, "Are you serious about what you said earlier? Because I really do think you're sexy." My wife replied saying that she was serious, and he told her to meet her in the garage. My brother had a detached garage in his backyard, which explained why I didn't see her anymore in the house. Their messages were quite alarming. It was only that brief conversation in the messages, but it definitely seemed like they were about to do something in the garage. I went to the garage as quickly as I could to try to catch them and whatever it was they were doing. As I stepped outside, I noticed that the lights inside the garage were on. When I peeked through the windows, I didn't see either of them at first, though I did notice one of the cars rocking back and forth. My gut told me that they were in the car sleeping together. I opened the side door and I looked inside to see that I was right. I had the foresight to take one picture of them before I opened the door and dragged my brother off of my wife. They were both shocked to see me, but they quickly covered themselves up and tried to apologize. We got into a full-blown screaming match. I was yelling at my brother and threatening to hurt him. My wife was trying to calm me down, but I was yelling at her too. Everyone inside the house heard it, so my sister-in-law came running out to see what was going on. When I explained everything, she joined in on the argument too. One of the neighbors actually ended up calling the police because we were fighting. Nobody was charged with anything. The officer that came out just did his best to separate us and calm us down. I ended up driving off alone that night to try and cool down without having to be around my wife or brother. When I got back the next day, my brother and wife had been kicked out of the house. I spoke to my sister-in-law and she told me that she couldn't be around either of them, so she made them leave. I had countless missed calls from my wife, but I ignored all of them. I talked to my sister-in-law before anyone else to see how she was feeling. Apparently, when she asked my wife why she would do that, she told her that it had always been something she wanted to do. Toward the end of our conversation, I told her about what happened at my brother's bachelor party. She was hurt that I didn't mention anything before, but I think that put the nail in the coffin for her. It just didn't make sense to either of us because my brother and I are identical twins. There was nothing about my brother that I didn't also have appearance-wise. A few days passed and I was back home and ready to have a conversation with my wife. I planned on telling her that we were going to be getting divorced and she had no say in the matter. When I asked her for clarity, she told me that it had always been something she wanted to do. Because we were twins, she wanted to sleep with both of us. She had been curious about how similar we were in different ways. The more she tried to explain herself, the more irritated I was with her. It really just seemed like she had some kind of fetish about it. I reached out to my sister-in-law and asked her about how things were going with her and my brother, to which she told me that she was divorcing him. Both of us went through with our divorces, leaving my brother and wife kind of screwed in the end. My wife was forced to get a second job to cover some of the bills that she would have to take care of on her own. We were only renting, so we didn't have to go through the ordeal of splitting a lot of our assets. We have joint custody of our children now and we're working to find some common ground between us to give the kids a semi-normal life. I don't talk to my brother anymore. Honestly, that hurts more than anything in this. Everybody else in my family is kind of frustrated with him for causing such a rift as well.